Aliens faced their first undead plague, so they begged humans for help. The transmission crackled through the emergency relay beacon orbiting the Andralis system, repeating on loop in a dozen galactic dialects. We request urgent aid, biological, contamination, unknown pathogen, reanimation event confirmed, civilian casualties rising. Please respond. It was the kind of message that sent chills even through seasoned spacefarers. But for Earth, it was practically an invitation. Major Dana Hart, commander of Earth's Interplanetary Quarantine Response Corps, had been sipping burnt station coffee when the beacon caught Earth's attention. 35 years had passed since the Galactic Concord had begrudgingly admitted humanity into its fold, not because they liked humans, but because humans had a knack for surviving the worst. Plagues, wars, radiation. Earth had danced with all of them and lived to tell the tale. So when aliens whispered zombies, humanity's ears perked up. The call came from the Kareth Dominion, a proud but notoriously isolationist reptilian species who had once declared humanity genetically chaotic. Now their envoy knelt before the Earth Assembly, scales dulled with stress, voice strained. Our dead walk. We cannot kill them. We need your monsters. Dana was already suiting up before the diplomats finished trading pleasantries. She had led teams into viral hotspots on Titan, boarded derelict plague ships in the Oort Drift, and shut down black market clone farms on Europa. Zombies, if that's what they were just another day at the office. Except this time, the office was a planet humans had never stepped foot on. Her squad wasn't the type you saw in diplomatic brochures. Corporal Renzo Gravedigger Malkin, weapons specialist with a prosthetic arm and a love for flamethrowers. Lieutenant Kira Vance, medical genius with a minor god complex. And Tech Sergeant Joe Null Weaver, a silent hacker who rarely looked up from her wrist pad unless something exploded. They boarded their dropship, Dead Reckoning, and descended toward Kareth's quarantined capital city of Valdris. The skyline was breathtaking, towering crystalline spires shaped like thorned petals now shattered and scorched. Below, chaos. Military drones fired into swarming figures that wouldn't stay down. Civilians screamed in clicks and hisses. And amidst it all, a wall of fire drawing a line between the uninfected and the shambling tide of reanimated corpses. The UAM squad landed in a cleared plaza flanked by dying ornamental trees. The air stank of sulfur and something worse, rot with a hint of static. Dana toggled her visor. Environmental suit integrity green, heart rates elevated. Let's make history. A Kareth general met them, armored in ceremonial bone plating, eyes bloodshot. We burned 3 cities, they kept walking. Dana surveyed the battlefield with professional calm. Your dead aren't staying dead, and your weapons aren't stopping them. The general's tail thudded against the scorched ground. They adapt. After 20 seconds, energy weapons stop working. Projectiles become ineffective within minutes. We do not understand this plague. Kira stepped forward, her medical scanner humming. Pathogen with learning capacity? No wonder you called us. All right, boys, let's find patient 0 and say hello. Valdris had become a living nightmare. The infected, Kareth citizens once known for their stoicism, now twitched, hissed and screamed with unnatural vocal cords. Some had no eyes. Others bore ritual tattoos burned black. Dana's team moved like ghosts through the rubble, watching the creatures react less to motion, more to heat and blood. Renzo lobbed a thermal grenade down a hallway crawling with twitching corpses. Heads up, this one's for science. Blast painted the walls red. Several bodies reassembled mid-motion, crawling with relentless drive. Kira's voice came through the comms. Not cellular repair, some kind of nanite structure, like programmable muscle memory. These aren't traditional zombies. Dana gritted her teeth. Then we don't use traditional rules. At the center of a once sacred temple, they found their clue. A collapsed quarantine vault with sigils burned away and black ichor coating the floor. A single Kareth child stood in the corner, untouched, eyes glowing faintly violet. As the squad approached, the child spoke in perfect English. "You're late." Null blinked. something she rarely did. That kid just backtraced our landing ID. Dana lowered her weapon, stepping closer. Who are you? I am she who remembers, the child said, voice too calm. I dreamed the dead awake. I opened the vault. Kira's hand hovered near her tranquilizer pistol. This isn't a normal plague, Dana. No, Dana said, eyes locked on the girl. This is something older, maybe smarter. Suddenly the floor quaked. A scream echoed through the temple, not of fear, but command. The reanimated surged from every opening, converging on the temple like iron drawn to a magnet. Renzo raised his gun. Well, I guess we're making first contact the old-fashioned way. Outside, the Kareth armies prepared to abandon the city, but inside, Earth's finest were about to show the galaxy why you never ignore the monsters of humanity. Panic wasn't part of Zara's nature, but watching the containment field flicker for the third time in as many minutes sent a sharp chill down her dorsal spines. The undead pressed against the transparent barrier, faces still twisted in expressions of their former lives, now grotesquely animated by the viral parasite infecting their bodies. They hadn't anticipated the plague spreading this fast, or this intelligently. The humans called it Necrostrain Lambda, a hybrid of engineered pathogen and adaptive nanites. Originally designed for battlefield triage, it had mutated into something grotesque, something that learned. Captain Jordan Rusk, the human advisor reluctantly embedded with the Zarn diplomatic fleet, watched the readouts with his arms crossed and jaw clenched. The last message from the surface colony below had been truncated mid-scream. Satellite feeds showed movement, fast, coordinated. Zombies weren't supposed to coordinate. Containment's going to fail within the hour, he said, turning toward Jera and the Zarn Command Council. And that thing you're calling a quarantine dome is more like a glass bowl full of soup at this point. It's learning your energy frequencies, adapting. We don't understand, Zara said, blinking her inner eyelids. This was an isolated biome. Your security systems are predictable, Jordan cut in, which means they're vulnerable. Admiral Velk, who had thus far refused to even look directly at the human, turned now with a grim expression. We assumed primitive human biohorrors could be easily sterilized. Jordan gave a humorless laugh. Yeah, that's the assumption. That wiped out Earth's upper continents before we figured out how to fight back. And even now, half our world's still under containment. Jera bristled. So you brought this with you? No, you called us, Jordan replied, stepping toward her with intensity. We brought the only tools proven to work against it. But your people won't even use them because they're unsightly. We need flamethrowers, EMP drones, neural disruptors. You need to stop thinking like aristocrats and start thinking like survivors. A siren wailed, low, ululating, and red. Containment field failure. Jera turned to the holo display, which now showed dozens of undead rushing through breached corridors in the colony's underground levels. A security officer collapsed, screaming, as one of the zombies tore through his armor like paper. They're inside, said the tech officer, voice cracking. And they're avoiding the turret systems. They're learning. Jordan muttered a curse under his breath. Told you, they know, they remember patterns. What do we do? Jera asked, the confidence of her diplomatic training unraveling under the weight of reality. First, Jordan said, grabbing a pulse rifle from the armory wall and tossing one to her. We stop trying to control this like a civic debate and start treating it like a war zone. Jera fumbled with the rifle. I've never used one of these. Learn fast. You're either a pacifist or protein to these things. The council chamber descended into chaos. One of the aides tried to open an emergency airlock only to find it sealed. Emergency override protocols designed to prevent escape during contagion events had now become a death trap. Jera and Jordan moved together through the corridor, his familiarity with battle obvious in how he covered corners and checked rooms. She was used to diplomatic halls, not blood-slick floors and echoing screams. The deeper they went, the more surreal it became. Former Zarn citizens gnawed on armored limbs, heads twisted unnaturally, as if the virus hadn't just animated their bodies but corrupted their very physical architecture. They shouldn't be able to bend that way, Zara muttered. That's the nanite side of the strain, Jordan replied. It doesn't just animate, it upgrades, turns bone into filament, muscle into corded steel. If they get access to your bioforges, they'll replicate. Suddenly, from around a corner, a horde burst out. Not dozens, hundreds. Zara froze. Jordan shoved her into a side panel, slamming the override to close the bulkhead behind them as he fired. The noise was deafening. Rounds impacted flesh, but didn't always drop their targets. One zombie, a former engineer, lurched through the fire and grabbed Jordan's shoulder, pulling him forward. Zara screamed and fired. 1, 2, 3 shots. The creature dropped and Jordan rolled free, panting, his armor torn. You did good, he gasped. They collapsed behind the emergency conduit rack, breathing heavily. We'll never hold them off, Zara said. There are too many, and we still don't know what they want. They want to be us, Jordan said darkly. They don't feed to eat. They feed to learn. Every brain they touch, they pull memories from. Skills, blueprints, languages. Her eyes widened. So the longer we wait, the smarter they get. Jordan pulled out a small device. A hologram of a detonator code lit up. What is that? A thermal scuttle charge for the main colony generator. We fry this section of the base, and the forges go with it. No replication, but there are still civilians inside. He looked at her, eyes heavy. And if we don't stop it here, there won't be any civilians left on your whole damn planet. A long silence. Zara looked at the photo on her communicator, her clutch siblings still on the orbital station. Her people, her culture, and then at Jordan. Human, brutal, efficient, but honest. Do it, she said. Jordan keyed the sequence. We've got 5 minutes to get clear. As they ran through the lower tunnels, fire already blooming behind them, Zara whispered a silent prayer, not to the gods of her species, but to the strange chaos that had brought the humans to their doorstep, and not a moment too soon. The dead didn't just shamble anymore. That was the first thing Lieutenant Harris noticed as they fought their way through the charred ruins of Tarvek 9's medical district. These aliens, Vornathi, insectoid, noble, orderly, were being hunted by a threat they couldn't quantify. But the corpses in front of him didn't behave like dumb zombies. They learned. 2 days ago, the infected tried to rush their barricade head-on. Dozens were mowed down. Now, they were flanking, coordinated, using terrain. Worse still, they mimicked sound. The Vornathi soldiers behind Harris clicked nervously, antennae twitching, phaser rifles trembling in spindly claws. Their precision armor was smeared with the filth of decay and alien blood. They weren't trained for this, but Harris's team was. Delta Team, suppress left flank. Harris barked into his comms, then turned to the nearest Vornathi sergeant. You want to win this war? Follow my lead and stop hesitating. Shoot, to kill, again if you have to. The Vornathi clicked affirmatively, hesitating only slightly before unleashing a volley that dropped a group of charging undead. One twitched, started to rise again. Harris calmly walked over and put a bullet through its head. Double tap, he muttered. Always. Back at the command center, things weren't any calmer. Dr. Kalin, the Vornathi exobiologist who had first pleaded for Earth's help, was elbow-deep in necrotic tissue samples. A hologram of an infected Vornathi corpse rotated beside her, each layer of data more disturbing than the last. The pathogen isn't entirely biological, she muttered. It's engineered. Someone made this. Harris arrived just in time to hear the chilling pronouncement. You're saying someone designed this plague? Kalin nodded grimly. It adapts, absorbs genetic memory, even mimics communication. Behaviors like our click language. That's why the Vornathi were caught off guard. The infected tricked us. Harris rubbed his face. That's not a plague, that's a weapon. A sudden alert blared. Perimeter breach. The rear gates, supposedly secure, were under attack. As the humans and Vornathi mobilized, Kalin remained at her station. She pulled up comparative DNA, strands, and froze. No, this can't be. On the screen, human DNA. Spliced into the undead genome, the command center was silent. Kalen's pronouncement dropped like a stone. Harris leaned in. Human DNA? In your dead? Kalen turned slowly. Someone engineered this plague with knowledge of human biology. Our ancient Alliance archives say Earth once developed experimental necrogenics, but they were outlawed. He shook his head. We buried those programs centuries ago. Someone unearthed them. Outside, chaos had ignited. The undead stormed the rear wall with intelligence and coordination. They weren't just feeding, they were recruiting. Newly dead Vornathi reanimated within minutes, fighting alongside the rest. In a daring maneuver, Harris ordered the Vornathi defenders to fall back to Sector 7, an old bunker with human-compatible tech. Inside, Kalen began synthesizing a counteragent. Harris, meanwhile, reviewed records of human military outposts abandoned during the last galactic war. One matched the pathogen's genetic markers. Fort Remus, he whispered. They used to run death avoidance programs there. With Kalen's help, they synthesized a retrovirus based on Earth's original countermeasures. But there was a catch. It had to be delivered into the nerve centers of the undead swarm, essentially their hive minds, and there were 3. Harris volunteered. So did Kalen. And, surprisingly, Vornathi war cleric Neth Kai, previously. Critical of Humanity pledged the 3rd team. The missions were brutal. Harris battled through crumbling cityscapes crawling with feral undead, his armor shredded, eyes bloodshot, one arm broken, but he made it. He detonated the canister directly into the Alpha Swarm host, unleashing waves of the anti-plague. Kalen, meanwhile, reached the medical vaults under Tarvek's hospital system. Her confrontation was different, more psychological. She found infected scientists who retained fragments of their intelligence. She begged them, reasoned with them, until one let her deploy the cure. Neth Kai did not survive, but his sacrifice ensured that the last hive mind fell. Days later, the reanimation stopped. The dead lay still. For good this time. At the memorial service, Kalen gave a speech beside Harris. The humans didn't just save us, she said. They reminded us that sometimes the only way to defeat death is to understand life. Even when it's messy, unpredictable, and deeply, deeply human, Harris smiled. Next time someone calls us barbarians, remind them who cleaned up your zombie apocalypse. Laughter, healing, unity. And quietly, in orbit, unknown to all, a satellite blinked. It had watched. It had learned. Somewhere in the black, whoever built the plague wasn't done. Not yet.